the Rutgers offensive line for 2025. When I was thinking about this, I went back to 2024, and there were some really impressive statistics for Rutgers. Rutgers rushed for 2,279 yards last year.
Beautiful.
Their best in the Big Ten era and most since 2017. Rutgers rushed for 205.8 rushing yards per game, which was fourth in the Big Ten. They were first in the Big Ten with time of possession at 32 minutes, 36 seconds per game. And in the midseason, they were named to the Joe Moore Award honor roll, which, as we all know, goes to the top offensive lines based on toughness, effort, and consistency. And Rutgers had the fourth lowest sack rate per pass play in the Big Ten. And, of course, Tyler Needham and Kawabena Asamoah led their positions in Pro Football Focus overall grades. So that's an impressive resume for the Rutgers offensive line. Now we've got Pat Flaherty back for Rutgers as the offensive line coach. He did an important press conference last week. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so real quick, I just wanted to hit the rewind button on that. You said that we're first in time of possession. Now, there's three things I get out of that. One is that we don't turn the ball over much, even though, we have those stupid throws. We don't turn the ball over much. Two is that we get first downs a lot and we get down the field often. But three, and you got to let me know what you think if I'm just being a Debbie Downer, but does that mean that we lack the big plays?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean I think that we lack the big plays as much as it means that we're efficient on third down. We're consistently moving the ball down the field. Maybe not as an explosive offense as some other teams, but certainly efficient. And there were some explosive plays, though, this year against teams like USC and Minnesota. So I think it's a balance between both. But that time of possession statistic is really, really important because, we want to keep all those explosive offenses off the field, and we want to make sure we have a balanced attack, which is what that suggests.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to see what you had to say about that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I guess I would tend to agree. But as for this offensive line, I mean, look, Pat Flaherty, our offensive line coach, I think he's done a tremendous job, and he just had that interview a few days ago, or it was a presser rather. So it was a bunch of interviews. This guy has 20 years of NFL coaching experience. And speaking of experience, that's really what he preached. He preached experience. He mentioned losing Holland Pierce is a challenge, but that the crew is ready to step up and be, and I quote, dang good. And I would agree with that. I mean, you have Taj White at right tackle, Ty Needham at left tackle. That's sort of what he mentioned. But you know what he said that interested me? He said that Ty Needham might convert to tight end.
Wow. That's very surprising to me.
Very surprising because of how good he is as a blocker on that left side.
Exactly. That makes me wonder, do they have another left tackle who's that impressive?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is we don't have a deep squad. Hey, what's up, Austin? We don't have a deep squad, but what we do have is enough players to try things out. So maybe that's all that he's saying with that is maybe for like certain plays. If we have a 3 tight end set, maybe he'll just be the third tight end. I'm not sure. But yeah, moving on here. What he said, and he kind of said that he is vertically aligned with Coach Greg Schiano. So he has that sort of similar hard-headed approach. But what interested me is that he said that the veteran players are even tougher on the new guys than they are. And, it kind of brings you to like this leadership versus, tough love versus like when does it become bullying? And I think for a football team, unless you have actual bullying allegations like Northwestern had, you can't really call it bullying, right? It's just leadership. And then also,
one thing I'll say about that. Sure. Look, college football, it's a tough sport. The fact that these guys are stepping up in leadership roles and being tough on the new guys means they're setting a culture and a standard that says we want to win and we want to win now. And that's good to hear for Rutgers football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great thing too. So going back to that vertically aligned thing, it's funny, Pat Flaherty and Coach Greg Schiano, they were actually coaching under some of the same people in the NFL, Dick Anderson and then Joe Paterno. But one thing, and this also interested me, he mentioned that Schiano yells at him sometimes, and I was wondering if this is a standard between coaches like that's sort of the takeaway I took from it. It's like, he mentioned it so casually. I'm like, is that actually normal? You see coaches yell at players. Players sometimes get frustrated with other players. But I didn't really think of coaches yelling at each other like that. What do you think?
Well, I think that there's two things to that. I think that head coaches will often be tough on their assistant coaches, especially if they don't think, they're calling the right plays or producing a product on the field that's up to their standards. But they tend to do it in private. However, there are some coaches who are not afraid to publicly admonish their assistant coaches, and we saw that with Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin when Kiffin was there as the offensive coordinator. And there was some, several videos of that where he's admonishing Kiffin when they were up 38-10 over Western Kentucky and had a bad drive. So I think that they are tough on their assistant coaches because they need a culture and a staff that's going to meet their standards.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. He also mentioned that Shiraka, the offensive coordinator, if there's not blown coverage, if there's a blown block or something consistently wrong, that he'll get the business from him too. And yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And it's worth noting too that Flaherty says that sometimes when he gets yelled at, he deserves it. So, and I would say he doesn't necessarily deserve it because his, he's very credited. He's got a very good line of experience, and our offensive line was actually one of our biggest strengths last year.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street when it comes to coaches criticizing assistant coaches. The criticism is only as good as the recipient and how they react to that criticism. And it's important to hold everyone, including the head coach, accountable, which is a good thing and creates a winning culture. The second thing is, as an assistant coach or even a head coach, no matter how successful you've been, you always have to have humility and always have to remain grounded and realize, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm always in need of improvement like everyone else. And if you're receptive to that criticism, it can make the relationship between the coaches and the success of the team that much greater.
Well, I would say that Pat Flaherty, he's hard-headed, but he's also super humble. So I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be this or that. I think it goes pretty hand in hand with him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all these coaches have egos, but I think when it comes down to it, you're not going to be perfect. And someone holding you accountable is actually helping you. They're helping you to really keep striving to be your best and to hold yourself to the kind of standard that's going to maximize the player's chances of being successful on the field.
Yeah, I mean, you'll think that they're arrogant or they're know-it-alls, but they're just preaching what they were taught. So, every piece of knowledge is transferred over from somewhere else, whether it's experience or it's a teacher. So he's going based off of those two things.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, so he said this, and this is an interesting quote, right? We talked about the reason for coming to Rutgers, whether it's part of building back a program, being part of history, being a part of a Cinderella run. But what Flaherty said, and he said this very firmly in his presser, he said, the reason you come to Rutgers University is to play in the Big Ten. So what do you think about that?
I think that's a great statement. It means that they are here to compete, not just to be competitive, but to win the Big Ten with sights set on making a playoff run. And with the additions that they've had in the transfer portal, the winning culture they seem to be establishing, a great staff, and a great head coach, they have the ingredients to do that this year and, as I've always said, in 2026, because you need to set a high standard and make it clear at the outset of any athlete's career in college. Because what you tell them when they first step on that campus is going to set the foundation, is going to establish the DNA of that player. And it seems like what they're doing is valuing high standards, accountability, and consistency and toughness. And those are the ingredients that lead you to develop the intangibles as a player that are going to win that game in the fourth quarter, and they're going to get the first down on 4th and inches.
So you're kind of saying that this is almost run militaristically.
I'm saying I'm old school.
Because that's really what a lot of those characteristics you were describing, that's really where they're mostly taught, is militarily.
Yeah, I'm old school because there's certain values that persist throughout history as critical ingredients to success. The ability to overcome adversity, to be tough, to react positively and learn from failure, and to really be at your best when you're under difficult conditions, and to have a mindset that's the mindset of a champion. And that stuff comes through only hard work, and toughness.
Okay.
And I think that with this new generation of players, it's sorely needed because it'll benefit them not just in the field but in life.
Well said, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Also, what he said is Ethan reminds him of NFL quarterbacks that he has coached in the system of and that he should do just fine in the NFL. Now, that's a topic we could debate on for however long we want this show to run. I mean, we've talked about Ethan enough. Ethan, come on the show. We want you. We want you bad. Make your presence heard. But moving on from that.
Hold on a second. See,
that's why I wanted to move on, because you will have a lot to say about that.
I'm just going to keep it short, but he's not ready yet for the NFL. And that statement I completely disagree with. We're talking about building a winning culture, and then he's saying something like that. He's going to be fine in the NFL. He's not going to be fine in the NFL unless he improves this year. And he has a substantial amount of improvement to make. Now, like I was saying before, the question is, how is he going to react to that criticism? How is he going to react to some of the failures of last year? Is he going to push forward and be even hungrier to win? I think he will be, because I think he's got that character. And I look forward to him having a really good season this year. But ready for the NFL? Not just yet. Well, hold on just a minute.
See, it's funny that you talk about the failures of last year, because a lot of people that don't support Rutgers but don't have a vendetta against Rutgers will say that last year was an overall successful year.
Well, that's not a successful year to me, because there's a certain standard that should prevail at Rutgers, and 7-5 doesn't cut it.
7-6, if you count
7-6 doesn't cut it.
You count the bowl game, but it's okay.
I'll tell you what cuts it is a national championship. Or when you look at wins and losses, what kinds of wins and losses were they? Were they losses where we played our heart out, left everything on the field, but still lost? If we did that, hey, you're still a champion in my book. But I don't think against Illinois we would say that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Or Nebraska.
Or Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Here all night. But so Flaherty said he believes that this is an overall more talented squad, and Nick Oliveira got a lot better and is close to playing in games. That was the only name he mentioned as close to playing in Big Ten games. And the new offensive lineman, he describes them as talented, but with a long way to go. But he didn't say it in a super pessimistic way. He just said that that's what every coach would see with this group of players, is that they're super talented. They have a long way to go. And he believed that Nick Oliveira, for example, did come a long way.
Well, one thing I believe in is development. And I'm always willing to give players a chance if they're willing to put in the work and if they make the right choices and decisions to be the best they can be. So let's hope that that's true. Could be an exciting year for Rutgers. It sounds like the vibes coming out of the program are very positive.
Yeah, definitely. And all those numbers you mentioned about last year's offensive line were very positive. And he ended it on a positive note in this presser by saying that he believes this O-line group has an opportunity to be elite. That's a big word to say.
Yeah. The word elite is a special and rare. It's a rare atmosphere to be in. And based on what they did last year, in the top half of the Big Ten in nearly every category and leading the Big Ten in time and possession, this is an offensive line to be reckoned with. And with that receiving core and 3 great running backs, our offense can be explosive this year.
And this ain't no Big East play. This is Big Ten.
No, the Big East doesn't even have football programs, do they?
I don't even know. I know that
Georgetown have a football team.
Maybe they would be a very smart team if they did.
Yes, there'd be a smart team, and they would take losing every single game in a very intelligent manner. Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I got for this Flaherty presser, though.
Excellent. Well, that kind of wraps up our discussion of the offensive line. But from what Gabe has said and from the stats from last year, we're looking like we're going in a positive direction. And the Big Ten, where the games are won? They are won in the trenches.